Exciting news! The Planet Peterson store on Shopify is now open. Click the top link in the description to go to Shopify, where you can check out shirts, stickers, digital artwork, and more. Thank you.
If you were able to fund an experiment, unlimited budget, top people, top whoever you want on this project, could you give an experiment to recreate the Big Bang?
Probably not.
What? Okay, that's
No, we don't know how to make universes. I knew that's exactly where this is going. It's hilarious.
Kind of weird, isn't it?
What's weird? That you don't get how science works?
That we use testable, repeatable.
It has been tested and repeated.
But you can't provide me an experiment. I just asked you if you would be
we build scientific instruments, we look deep into space, and then we repeatedly find observations, tested, repeated, and observed phenomena that are completely consistent with the Big Bang model.
But we've never recreated it.
That's great. So, let's play pretend. I'm going to play... I hope you will play pretend with me. A murder has been solved. Okay. Could you think of a way we could solve this murder?
I'm not sure what you're trying to get. Obviously, there's ways to solve the murder.
Okay, go ahead. Give me some examples.
You investigate.
Murder someone in a controlled setting and...
No. Don't give away the ending. How would we solve this murder?
You would investigate.
Okay. So what would that investigation include?
I'm not sure why we're correlating a murder though with recreating an experiment
I promise after about 3 minutes you'll know exactly why we're doing this. I also guarantee that you'll still double down, but we're going to get there anyways. So how would we solve this murder?
You would investigate.
And what would the investigation involve?
Fingerprints.
So we would collect evidence?
Correct.
Okay. At what point during the investigation do we recreate the murder?
There's a lot of times that they do that in order to understand it.
Yeah, so at what point do you recreate the murder?
The actual murder?
Yeah.
Never.
I think he might have gotten that.
But
so, in other words, we can prove that something happened by collecting evidence that is congruent with the particular idea about this thing and the specific details about it, and we don't have to recreate the actual event.
Okay, but it seems...
No, not okay, but that's how it works. And that is largely how we do a lot of the science that we do. In fact, I can just simply claim, because photons have to hit your retina and then your brain has to process them, literally every single thing that you do has to involve interpreting evidence that occurred in the past. None of it's there anymore. So I could just flippantly claim, none of that's actually you're just trying to extrapolate stuff in the past and it's never going to work actually.
But it seems that the so-called science...
No, it's not so-called science. Astronomy is an extremely rigorous and well-researched field.
I completely agree that the stars and the sun and the moon are important regarding this Earth that we live on.
And we know things about them, including how old they are.
But it seems that the science that's claimed to show this Big Bang and this evolution, there's nothing that's ever no experiment to recreate.
You know who doesn't feel the way you feel? Scientists. Now, why do you think that is?
It's not about a feel, though, here.
Yes, it is about a feel. Your argument, you literally framed it as I feel like.
Demonstrating and repeating and actually having things to verify your hypothesis.
Open all the prisons, everybody. Let all the murderers free. We cannot reproduce any of these events. Oh, crap. We lost at the end of that game? Damn. Free all the murderers. 1024 CR said so. Free all the murders. No murder can ever be proven.
Why are you changing the subject here?
I'm not changing the subject.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about epistemology, and I'm just advocating for something that's consistent with your worldview. Free all the murderers, everybody.
I asked for evidence to show this hypothesis. And
We live in an expanding universe. Do you agree or disagree?
Disagree.
Do you think the Earth is flat?
It's a topographical plane.
Show the evidence for that.
We could have just shortcut to that part.
Yeah, next time lead with that. But anyways, show your evidence.
Evidence for what?
That Earth is a topographical plane.
Well, it seems if I go outside my
I
front
didn't
door-
ask you for your feelings. I said you to provide evidence.
So the evidence that I'm going to be able to provide you is my own evidence. That's the only evidence that I'll ever be able to verify and 100% tell you this is what I observe in the reality that I'm living.
So,
Okay.
again, do you think our justice system should work that way? Judge, we have a confession from the murderer. We have the murder weapon. It has his DNA on it. Judge, I wasn't there, so... Mr. Lawyer, with your fancy lawyer speak, why don't you take your evidence and get out of here? This is fucking stupid.
Why does
If the world ran this way, it would be the stupidest fucking world ever. But it would still be round.
there's no evidence? It seems that the evidence that shows that it's a spinning space rock doesn't seem to add up to what
We have
observe.
only evidence of that. For example, the angle that the sun reaches at noon on the equinox is exactly equal to your line of latitude, which is only possible on a spherical Earth. In fact, you can do the calculations for what that would be like on a flat Earth. I've done these calculations. You have the sun at its highest point, and then you have the equator, and then wherever you are. The angle that the sun makes at noon at its highest point is going to be some angle, right? And because we know how far away the equator is, and because we know this angle, we can do 8th grade, math, and figure out exactly how far away that sun is, because we know 2 angles and the base. So we can figure out how far away the sun is. Then what you do with that, once you now know the vertical distance between sun and the surface of the Earth, then you can go to a farther away point, and then you can predict on this farther away point on the equinox, where will the sun be? Because it's just basic 8th grade math. And when you do that, you find that every single time it fails. The angle that is predicted based on any other position is always wrong. Always wrong. Except at the equator, because it would just be straight up 90 degrees, I guess. But that would be true no matter how far away the sun is or no matter what shape the Earth is. But the other predictions fail every single time. Whereas the predictions made by this work every single time. Every single time. And guess what? That is something you can prove yourself. It's not even remotely hard to do.
But okay, you're using trigonometry to figure out the distance and angles to the sun.
Yeah.
That is 3 flat lines, a triangle,
3 flat lines.
3 level lines.
Flat level
Point.
lines. You think a triangle is made of... What the hell is a flat line? You mean a straight line?
Straight line, flat line, whatever you want to call it. But you have 3 lines.
Yeah.
A to B, B to C,
Yeah.
C to A.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's your curve there?
What?
Where's the curve?
You don't need the curve for this.
But you claim
We-
that we
Because we're calculating it based on the flat Earth. You assume there is no curve. What I told you we do is we look at where the sun is, we find the angle, and then assuming that Earth is flat, you just extrapolate. Now that we know how far away the sun is vertically, you just go, okay, now that I know that, and I know that this base angle will always be 90 degrees, what if I'm way over here? And you predict where the sun will be, and it always fails. Now, for one of these, it's different for a sphere. I'd have to draw it for you, but the way it works out is you have a tangent line, which is your horizon, and then the way the sunlight comes into that angle always matches your latitude.
and
So it
I guess
100% fails
I don't
every
know.
time under your model, which means your model is false.
See, I don't think you understand what my.
I know you don't understand.
I think I clearly understand.
No.
Otherwise, I would not be having this conversation with you.
Yes,
Okay.
you would. I've proven people wrong
would.
countless times, and they always double down.
Okay, so far we've got triangles, which are lines. I asked for evidence of a recreation of this hypothesis.
Math.
that we
You have math.
hanging
That's what we
evolution.
presented.
I used math. If the Earth is flat, we could use mathematics to prove whether or not that's true. The problem is the mathematics always proves it false. That's the problem. That is your problem.
That seems not to be the problem. It seems that
It's a problem.
everything is based off of a level stationary plane. All of our building,
Yeah.
all of our surveying, everything's based off of a level plane.
Yeah, because because a building which is going to be a couple yards or a couple dozen yards long isn't going to need to account for any curvature. Even an idiot knows that a planet the size that Earth is would have no noticeable curvature at all over a distance of a few hundred yards at the most. Except when we do build bridges that span bays, they actually do make the tops of those towers a few inches farther apart than the bases are. But anyways, don't change the subject. I need you to tell me how you reconcile the fact that the mathematical predictions about where the sun is always fail on a flat Earth.
Because I don't use math as a definitive answer.
Well, you should, because nothing in the universe is more
Create
objective
a
than
math
math.
problem to describe anything.
can
you
you
want.
use
I
any
didn't
math
create a math problem. This is trigonometry. It always works.
Which requires a 3 lines. That's the weird part, is these 3 lines.
It's not weird. It's not weird. Look, I'm actually assuming that this is how science works. We have a hypothesis. We assume our hypothesis is true. You have to assume it's true, otherwise you can't do your experiment, because your experiment is based on what are you predicting to find out. So I'm assuming that the Earth is flat. Okay, you would do this trigonometry problem to try to prove something consistent within it. It always fails. So it's not interesting. I'm not giving up ground, or I'm not conceding ground to you when I tell you that we do trigonometry to test your idea. No, I'm testing your idea. I'm granting you this thing so we can figure out if your idea is true or not. And guess what?
Okay,
Your
so
idea is false. The math proves it false.
Where are you looking at the sun at noon at the equator?
From literally, no, you don't look at it from the equator. You look at it from any 2 parts on the surface of the Earth, other than the equator. The equator would be dumb because it's going to be straight above you, whether or not the Earth is flat or round.
And what is your claim?
You actually didn't understand anything that I said,
Literally
really.
did not understand.
You didn't
Why
understand a
something-
fucking thing. God.
Oh, I understand all this.
Oh, well then I don't have to repeat it.
If you understood it, you would be able to teach it back to the almost 600 people in this live right now. But you're
Well,
asking
see,
a
that's
very
the thing.
simple
I understand.
question,
Just
showing that you did not understand it at all.
I understand that I can get an angle, I can get a distance to my sun using triangulation. I get that. We use it for navigation for with stars and everything. I understand that. I guess I don't understand what your claim of is how the sun doesn't work on this earth.
Yep, I'll explain it to you right now. Okay, so if I'm here, oh man, this is actually really confusing. So, if I am here and I am looking at the sun, then what I do is I take my distance from the equator, where the sun forms a 90-degree angle with the ground, and where I am. That gives me two angles and a known distance. That I can do trigonometry to figure out what this angle is. Now, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
Why are you going to the equator, though?
Because it creates a 90-degree angle. Therefore, we have two known angles. So when you do that, you can solve this problem right here. What is the height of this right there? Now what you can do is, okay, well, now that I know this and I know this, I go to a new spot on the planet. Now that I know what this line is, this line, and that angle, I can use that to predict what this angle will be. So you predict what it will be, but then when you go there and you look at the sun, you find that it doesn't match at all. Therefore, it's false.
Well, no, you're claiming...
No, not no. Yes.
It would have to be your perspective and what you see.
Of course it's your perspective. The perspective changes. You go from here to here. And when you go from here to here, the angle is a specific angle. That's what perspective is! The problem is, the perspective doesn't match the prediction that your model creates. It is perspective. That it's just perspective argument is so stupid. Of course it's perspective. We're talking about what our observations are.
And if the sun, and that's the thing, okay, so I understand the sun is not 93 million miles away. What I observe is that...
Of course it is.
We apparently... I would beg to differ because the corpuscular rays that we see that come off of the sun...
Oh, God, not this shit.
Numerous times. Have been explained numerous times. But you didn't understand those explanations either.
Have you ever looked at train tracks before?
Yep.
You notice how they go together?
Yep.
As they go farther away from you, they converge together?
Yep.
Do they actually converge together, or are they parallel?
No, they don't.
What does no they don't mean? They don't come together?
No, they don't.
Exactly. When something's far away from you, parallel lines that are far away from you look like this from your perspective. That's what corpuscular rays are. But again, I'm not interested in changing the subject until you can either deal with this or admit that you have absolutely no idea what's going on. Because and you have to believe what you believe, despite what the observable, repeatable, testable evidence that you love so much proves. Despite what that proves, you still have to believe the Earth is flat. Which means evidence doesn't actually even matter to you, does it?
Which is, and this is only one
asked for evidence in the first place regarding evolution and the Big Bang, and I'm sorry, but there's no experiment that will ever recreate that. So, at all it is...
You admitted that epistemologically, we don't have to recreate something to prove that it happened. So we're done with that idiotic argument.
It's not an idiotic argument.
Okay, then you believe in a contradiction.
Okay. If you want to go to murder, the evidence that you brought to trial doesn't match up with the murder.
All of our evidence we have matches with the Big Bang model.
It appears it doesn't, because...
It doesn't appear that it doesn't. It does. So anyways, we will talk about... I will give you the next subject, I promise, but I'm not letting you change the subject from this. This doesn't work when we do observable, repeatable scientific tests centered around the idea that the Earth is flat. This never works. It always fails. So I need you to tell me why you believe the Earth is flat, despite the fact that this is a complete failure.
I don't see how it fails because it's honestly what we observe.
God. What?
We observe it repeatedly.
You could do this. You could do this year or next year, actually.
You're making predictions into a model and assuming that the sun is a certain type of light, and you're assuming.
No, you don't have to assume the sun is a certain type of light.
You are. You're assuming.
Buddy, you could go do this in your backyard with a freaking telephone pole. You could look at how far away is the top of the telephone pole and look at the angle it creates. As long as you know you got a 90-degree angle for the telephone pole, and then how many feet or yards or meters is this? You could get the angle. Then you could say, okay, if I go this far away, what will the angle be? You can repeat that. All you're doing is looking at the top of the telephone pole. Okay? You could do this in your backyard.
You know where the sun is at, the distance, in order to.
You figure it out by doing this. I just explained this to you. By doing this, you solve how far away the sun is.
The elevation of the sun?
Yes, by doing this, you solve that because you know this angle and this distance. So you can find the height of that. This is basic trigonometry.
Okay, and what elevation are we giving the sun?
I could look this up. I did this not too long ago. It's around 4,500 kilometers, I believe, is what you get. And then the predictions. Look, I just need you to tell me, how do you deal with this, despite the fact that, again, you came in here saying you have these problems with some scientific ideas because we can't even get observable, repeatable, testable data, or whatever. We have observable, testable, repeatable data with your flat Earth idea, and it always fails. So how are you dealing? Why do you continue to believe in it when it fails according to your own epistemological standard?
What's failing, though? That's what I don't understand.
How are you this stupid? I've explained how it fails multiple times. I'm not doing it again.
You just told me that you didn't know the elevation that you have. You need to know what the elevation measurements are in order to know what your angles would even be.
Yes, I've done this before. I did it months ago. Okay? I don't remember off the top of my head what the number was, but I know that when you do these calculations, it doesn't work.
To prove that we live on a level plane.
Yeah.
That's what it... How?
Bro, the math doesn't work.
The math don't math.
This is flat. None of the math works.
The math
and
don't
this
math.
is only one of like a dozen issues with the flat Earth.
Chat, I need math don't math in the comment section right now. I need about 100 kabillion of those. Math don't math. Sorry, that math don't math.
I've explained how it does not work out mathematically. If you didn't pay attention, or if you're just trying to buy yourself some time to think of something, then I'm sorry, but I'm not playing that game.
I don't claim to any mathematics. I don't claim to any measurements. I've never taken any measurements. I can't verify any measurements.
You said the only thing that works for you, that counts for you, is what you can do. You can do this. And now you're saying yourself, I don't make any measurements. Well, you should. So now you're just claiming I have ignorance. I have total ignorance, but I still believe blank. What kind of way to live life is that?
I measure things all the time. So I have...
Okay, then go and do this, and then understand that your idea that the Earth is flat doesn't work. The math don't math.
That math don't math.
The math to math, and to understand that 93 million miles away is not it.
Right.
And
So your idea doesn't become true when you fail to understand how other ideas work. What you need to do is test your own claim. Okay, I've
right.
done it.
There's
You
other
can
things
do
that
it.
go
Test your
into
own claim. You'll find it doesn't work. We have calculated how far away the sun is. I can tell you about how that works, but you'll just say, nuh-uh, right? Now, at the top of my head, I don't really know the math behind using the transit of Venus to figure out how far away the sun is. I know you just observe it from 2 different points on Earth. I couldn't describe it to you in detail. But we also bounce radio waves off the sun, and then we time how long it takes for them to come back. We do that in the present day. But you'll just say, no, we don't, which is just dumb because we do that with ground-based telescopes.
How far can we send ground-based radio signals? That you're saying we can send them 93
An
miles?
infinite distance away. What are you talking about? Electromagnetic radiation just goes on forever. What would stop it?
Electromagnetic.
What?
Just trying to make sure I understand what you're referring to.
It's basically an echo. We can bounce radio waves off the sun and time how long it takes for them to get back. It's a radio echo. And that math,
Do math. That math, do math. I need about 27 Brazilian that math, do math in the comments right now. Right now. That math, do math.
You can verify that 93 million miles.
it's been done scientifically.
It's been done with what?
By scientists using scientific instruments.
Just
And now you're just going to say, yo, so you just believe whatever the Jews tell you? So I don't know what the fuck to do with you because you ask for evidence and I tell you what the evidence is. And then you just are going to be like, nuh-uh.
You're welcome to accept whatever into your reality that you want to, but doesn't mean that it actually matches up with the reality that we're observing.
I agree.
I think this point is going over his head.
It's not going over my head. I understand what
Yeah, you can believe this, but it doesn't match with reality. A wise man once said, well, he wasn't wise, but you know, he was a man.
I never claimed any distance. Like I didn't. Your math. I'm not claiming.
This is your math. It doesn't work.
No, it's not my math because I don't claim math because I've never made any measurements. Like I said before.
God,
What I can observe
just went so far over your head, dude.
It's not over my head.
I know that you haven't done the work on this, okay? That's not what your math means. I am a teacher, but I didn't grade your homework. This is just the data that would prove your idea correct, and it proved that your idea is false. That's what I mean.
It doesn't prove that it's false. It just proves that
It 100% proves that it's false.
It proves that your hypothesis didn't work.
It's your hypothesis.
I didn't claim any numbers, though.
You claim the Earth is flat. This is a hypothesis that tests whether or not the Earth is flat.
That, with your data, with your math that you put in there.
Do you think if you did this, you would get different data?
What's that?
Do you think if you did this, you would get different numbers?
How can I verify that I'm measuring the correct distance to the sun?
This is the most NPC behavior I have ever seen in my life. What do you want to talk about next?
Okay, observe what I've observed in my reality. It appears that in order to have gas pressure, I need an enclosed system. If I do not have an enclosed system, I'm not able to maintain pressure.
Great. Do you know that you also can't have a pressure gradient if you have a gas in a container?
Actually, by changing the temperature of the container, I have seen a pressure gradient within a container
How?
by changing the temperature of one side of the container.
How big is the container?
Propane tank.
Are you? Oh my god! Are you talking about how there's liquid propane in like half the tank, and then there's gas on the top? Because having a gas and a liquid in the same container is not having gases at different pressure gradients.
I can have a pressure gradient within a enclosed system.
How?
That's what you have by heating one side of the container. By
Right.
applying
So will that system reach equilibrium? In a moment of time, if we freeze time, yeah, you can have some, because those gas particles are always in motion. So there are always microscopic variances. Or there can be large variances, such as when you begin to heat, like when you begin to heat something on the oven, the pan is only hot right in the middle for right when you start doing it. But does that heat eventually equalize? Yes. So can you achieve a sustained pressure gradient inside a closed container?
Well, yeah, I guess I would have to continue to hypothesize that if I get a larger container, I can apply heat to one side of this container, and that heat's going to stay to one side.
No, it's not. It will always equalize.
I don't think so.
Then
Now,
this is literally the thermodynamic stuff that you guys love to yap about.
If I apply heat in a circular rotation above that container, and there I should be able to not allow the heat to completely reach equilibrium within
No.
that. Yeah.
No.
That would be my hypothesis. That seems pretty logical.
Okay. If you had a very large container, then something that could happen, let's just imagine this a more simple way. Let's imagine we're boiling water in a column that's 100 feet tall. Yes, the water on the bottom could be boiling hot, and then as it goes to the top, it loses energy, so at the top it's not boiling anymore. You could have something like that with an extremely large column of water. But what we have there is we have a constant supply of energy into the system. This closed gas thing, you're kind of supposed to assume that you have a self-contained system that's not being influenced by the outside or whatever. This is actually, I was trying to ask this question to try to get to a point, but it didn't. But anyways, so do you agree that the air gets thinner as you go up?
Yeah, we have a pressure
Okay,
gradient.
then it's not in a container because that's not what contained gases do.
Why not?
Because a gas always unilaterally fills its
Yeah.
container.
It seems that our gases have different densities and they soar
No.
according to those densities. What do you mean, no?
The air, when you're in an airplane, the composition, which is a word that means what is the air made of, is the same at cruising altitude than it is on the ground. There's the same amount of nitrogen, there's the same amount of oxygen. Those two things make up 98% and then argon. That's like over 99% of the gases. The rest don't matter. The rest aren't going to change. So the composition of the atmosphere is the same at cruising altitude than it is on the ground. But the air is, at cruising altitude, I don't know what it is. I think it's like a third less pressure or whatever. You know, and I know, that we have weather balloons that go up. And those weather balloons pop because the pressure is so low, way less than 1% what it is on the surface, that the balloon expands and it pops. Gases don't do that. You know what happens or gases in a container don't do that. You know what happens when you open a can of soda? It goes, why does it do that? Because there's more pressure there and less pressure on the outside. So if your idea is correct, then what must be always happening is the air on the ground must be always rushing upward where there isn't as much pressure. Why doesn't it do that? Because of gravity. Because the air is more dense down here. Because the weight of the atmosphere is pulling it down.
Is that not what I just said?
No.
Your temperatures are down here.
I said the atmosphere is more dense because of its weight, and weight is a force caused by gravity. Density, you just said herder because density. Density can't make anything happen. It's just a property that matter possesses.
Right. Density is a matter that right. But it doesn't appear that gravity is having the effect. That it's not gravity that's sorting the things. It's literally their density and their buoyancy, and they sort accordingly.
Only if you have an accelerating force. You know what a centrifuge is?
Right. Okay. If you need an accelerating force,
Yeah,
then
and that's what gravity is.
That would be the electromagnetic field.
No, it's not. What the fuck are you talking about? You think that the air is drawn electrostatically to the ground? You're mad. You're off your rocker.
It appears that energy and the electrostatics and the electromagnetic field have a lot to do with this Earth and the reality that we live in.
Name one thing.
I think our food. I think it helps our bodies.
Great. You almost could not have given a more generic answer that doesn't say anything specifically.
Because I have to. I claim on what I've seen and what I've observed.
That's great.
So I have to. I'm not going to sit here and feed you. I'll go to this person or that person. Oh, this physicist or this science. No, I'm going to give you what I.
Okay. Can we do a timeout real quick? Guests, I hear you, but I'm not having any lag, and I'm recording this for content. So I'm not about to just stop what I'm doing at the moment. When 1024 and I are done talking, then I'll do a hard reset. But right now, I don't really want to do that. Sorry. So, do you want to keep talking, or do you want to just talk again some other time?
No, you're good. Have a good night.
All right. You too.